What is up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of the Fantasy Fellow Show. My name's Kyle. Tonight, it's Tuesday evening, December 12th. It is officially Fantasy Football Playoffs, Week 15. Excited to be here with you guys on this Tuesday evening. We're going to hang out for the next 45 minutes or so and answer any questions you guys have in the chat room. We'll look at some of the waiver wires and the matchups and the points allowed and things like that to get you guys ready for the week. I will be doing a live show again tomorrow evening. So if you guys have sit questions, I would maybe try and wait for those to be answered tomorrow evening once we get more practice reports and things like that. But otherwise, waiver wire show tonight. Let's get into some of these questions, and I'll hop into a screen share here, and we'll get the show rolling. Hope everyone's having a lovely Tuesday evening. We got David in the chat room asking some interesting questions here at the quarterback position. So he's got a 2-quarterback league. He's got Mahomes, Geno, and Ritter. Thoughts on which quarterback for my number 2, who is the guy for the Chargers, stick? And then he says maybe I should go with Drew Lock. So I mean, obviously you're gonna play Pat Mahomes. It's an interesting matchup against the New England Patriots for them, and I think we're gonna see we haven't really seen good Mahomes for the last few games. They're gonna figure it out eventually. You're gonna continue to play Mahomes, and then I mean we know Geno Smith, man. He's got the best matchup on paper. The Eagles allow the most fantasy points allowed to the quarterback position. I want to probably hold out hope for Geno Smith. And I'm not sure if he's going to play in this one. We don't have any, again, it's Tuesday night. We don't have any reports on these guys unless they play on Saturday or Thursday. And it seemed like Geno Smith had a chance to play in this game on Sunday, but maybe they just took it easy with him. I personally would hold out hope for Geno here, but then you could maybe just add Drew Lock. I do agree. The matchup for Desmond Ritter is not great against the Carolina Panthers. And Carolina has been one of the better teams against quarterback all season for some reason, as teams just are able to run the ball on them. And Ritter did play against the Panthers back in week 1. He actually played well, 15 of 18 passing, but only 115 yards and 1 touchdown, only 9 points. So obviously we've seen some spike games from Desmond Ritter. I don't think we're going to get that against the Carolina Panthers in a game where, hey, we expect the Falcons to be able to run the ball and control the clock and not really have to force them to throw in games where, Ritter throws the ball a ton. That's where we like him. And I just don't think that's the recipe here. So if you had to cut somebody, and again, you're looking at, guys like Easton Stick, guys like Drew Lock, and your opponent here has Stroud and Dobbs. So I understand wanting to block them. So are we comfortable throwing them Desmond Ritter out to the Wolves here and saying, hey, like I'm comfortable with my opponent starting Desmond Ritter. Basically, they're going to get 8 or 9 points. And there's I doubt that he's going to come out and get, 16 to 20 points in this one. So I'm leaning towards not going after Easton Stick. I really don't trust that game much at all. It's probably one of the worst Thursday night football games that we're going to witness this season. And if I go to the game totals in this game, the Chargers-Raiders game total, it's the worst implied total of the entire Week 15 slate here. So I don't expect Easton Stick to come out and play very well. I think it's his first career start. He's got he's competent. He's got some gunslinging attitude, but we also might not see Keenan Allen in this one. I know he hasn't practiced all week. Looking at the reports here, no Keenan Allen on Monday or Tuesday for practices. Just makes me a little bit nervous. I'm not going to trust Easton Stick, I think, at this point of the fantasy playoffs. So with everything that you've presented here, David, I think I'm willing to cut Desmond Ritter and try and pick up Drew Lock. If he's available and you don't think anyone else is going to pick up Drew Lock, I think I'm comfortable saying, hey, you can have Desmond Ritter. I think he's only going to get 8 to 10 points. And then maybe we just secure Seattle Seahawks quarterback. And if we see that Geno Smith is practicing tomorrow, then you can maybe make a move and try and block some other quarterbacks from doing some things. But personally, I'm holding out hope for Geno Smith here in this situation, and I would start Geno and Mahomes. I'm comfortable with Drew Lock. Drew Lock played well enough in a game last week where it wasn't perfect. They didn't win the game, but he did put up some fantasy numbers. I mean, he had 15 fantasy points against a good 49ers defense through two touchdowns. He did throw 2 interceptions, but he will, continue to fire, and it's arguably the best matchup. So I hope that helps. Good evening to Daniel. Hope you're doing well. We're already in the playoffs, and my team is pretty good with at least 2 decent backups. Should I spend my number one priority to add Chandler or just wait for a better opportunity? Um, yeah, that's a good question here. Let's look at the Vikings backfield because I'm sure a lot of people have Alexander Madison questions this weekend. He's got a sprained ankle, non-participant in Tuesday's practice. They're playing on Saturday here. I think the easy diagnosis here is to assume that he's not going to play. Now, they also get Detroit next weekend, which is not a great matchup for running backs. And then they get Green Bay week 17. So Green Bay, you can run on Green Bay. I don't hate that matchup. But is Ty Chandler somebody that we're going to be comfortable starting? Last weekend, he played okay, 12 for 35, not the best, but 3 for 7 as a receiver, 7.2 fantasy points. We've seen a couple games where he's played well. He had a great game against Denver. Only got the 1 touchdown on the year. So I don't mind Ty Chandler. Any news about Madison? I don't think we're going to get any news until tomorrow. Today, it's Tuesday. Again, they play Saturday, so it's kind of like too early to call it. But I'm assuming Madison's not going to play. I thought I saw a high ankle sprain for Madison, if I remember correctly, which would be obviously the worst case scenario here. So I'm leaning towards yeah, you should probably pick up Ty Chandler, even if you don't need him. I'm not sure who you would need to drop Daniel. I mean, if your depth is nice with what you got here, and you're not going to be using Ty Chandler, I don't think he's going to be, an amazing. The other thing too is Nick Mullins is going to be starting quarterback for this offense. I don't know if there's going to be a lot of points scored in this game here, so I don't think Ty Chandler is essential. Obviously, we could block him from somebody else getting him and just seeing what happens. But I think I'm okay not getting Ty Chandler, but I would try to improve my bottom of my roster if I can. And hey, no problem. Let me know if you have more questions on that. I think well, as it stands right now, ESPN here is projecting Geno Smith to play, which is good to see. And tomorrow is going to be the big day. They are projecting him 17 points. Pete Carroll said, "We'll see." This was yesterday. So hopefully he can play. I mean, he had that massive game against Dallas. I would imagine they're fighting for their playoff lives. I would imagine they're going to try and get Geno Smith in the game this weekend against the Eagles. Good evening to Charlene. We're 12-2. I have a bye this weekend. What about Mason and Vikings defense? I like Elijah Mitchell, but he injured a lot. I'm fully on board with Jordan Mason being a solid handcuff for this weekend. I don't know much information about Elijah Mitchell's injury. I just know that, hey, he's always got something. He's always kind of injury prone. I don't really trust him. ESPN is projecting him 4.2 points, but we saw Jordan Mason come in and get a touchdown last weekend. We've seen Jordan Mason come in and play well, at various points of the season. So I think right now, he's kind of where things are going. I know it was only 4 carries for 20 yards, but again, he got the touchdown. They're playing Arizona this weekend. It wouldn't surprise me if they blow the doors off Arizona if we're seeing Jordan Mason get carries in this one. And hey, if anything does happen to CMC, you do have the potential backup here. So I like adding Elijah Mitchell and that Vikings defense. What do we do with that Vikings defense? Because, hey, they got a shutout against the Raiders the other day. I don't know if I'm trusting them against Cincinnati this weekend. I'm curious to see. And I know we've looked at the Vikings before, but I don't know if I trust them against Detroit. I know it's at home. I'm struggling to trust this team. They have been playing pretty well here, though. They held the Bears to only 12 points. They held the Raiders to 0 points. So I get it. I'm struggling to trust the Vikings here, who are now under their third, fourth quarterback. Maybe no Justin. I don't know if I want to trust the Vikings, especially this weekend. Going to Cincinnati, I think I'm going to stay away, and then I'm probably not interested against the Lions. So I think I'm out on the Vikings, but I could be wrong. I would drop Higgins or Green Bay defense. My other defense is Browns. All right, so that Packers defense let us down last night. I know we were all kind of hoping that they could be someone that we could trust, but if I'm holding out hope for the Packers, I don't know if I trust them against the Buccaneers. I do trust them against the Panthers. I think that's a good matchup here. I think because the nature of fantasy football is week to week. If you're needing to drop someone to get Ty Chandler, I'm okay dropping Green Bay defense. I mean, I don't think you're going to use them this week. Maybe you are. I'm not sure on that. I don't really want to drop T. Higgins, though. just because he did show signs of life last weekend. So assuming you have another defense that you're going to be starting for at least this week or next week, I think I'm okay letting Green Bay defense go. Again, they kind of disappointed us. They let the Giants score 24 points last night. And even though they have the Panthers game coming up, you might be able to find something else defensively. So if you had to cut somebody, it's probably the Packers D. Good evening to Harris. Hope you're doing well. Saw some specialists saying the video suggests a high ankle sprain for Madison. It means probably 3 weeks, so Chandler could play the entire playoffs. And yeah, he totally could. I don't know who they're. I think Kene Nwangu is their number 2 with Chandler moving up. I'm personally concerned about the Vikings offense as a whole. Moving to Nick Mullins, we don't expect them to score a lot of points, but Ty Chandler can be a 3-down back for them. So he could be, maybe best case scenario is he's kind of like a Chuba Hubbard type value where he's getting, the ball 15 to 20 times a game, even though it's not a great offense. So I do see some value in stashing him, and who knows, maybe seeing where it goes. So I think at this point of the year, if I see a starting running back, I think it's wise to try and get that starting running back. And one, even if you don't use him, you're protecting yourself from somebody else using him against you. And even if it's not this week, it could be, next week you play Ty Chandler if someone picked him up. So I think you probably have to go after the starting running back if you can. I picked up Josh Palmer if Keenan Allen gets injured, and picked up Gibson if Robinson gets injured. So these are both great moves. I did see today that Josh Palmer was activated. And right now, it doesn't look good to me, at least for Keenan Allen. He didn't practice Monday or Tuesday. Tomorrow is obviously a huge day. They play on Thursday Night Football. I did see, here's Alexander Madison, DNP today. JJ limited on practice today. But where was the... There you go. So Josh Palmer will play. I don't think we should start him, but I do want to see him on my bench just in case we see something that we like, but we can maybe use in week 16 or 17. So I love that one. And then I thought I saw something on Antonio Gibson, Brian Robinson yesterday. It might have been earlier in the day, but I was pretty sure I saw that Brian Robinson's going to practice this week. It doesn't mean he's going to play, but Ron Rivera is saying that he expects Brian Robinson Jr. to practice this week. So maybe he's able to practice and play, and maybe not at full 100%, but I do think Gibson is a guy that definitely should not be on any waiver wires right now. And yeah, we are concerned with Keenan Allen. It's essentially a lost season for the Chargers. If it wasn't before Herbert got hurt, it officially is. This team, they're fighting for last in the AFC West right now. If you look at the playoff picture, they're 5-8. They're a full 2 games back from the true playoff race here. But I don't see this going well. Maybe if they win tomorrow night, they can maybe continue to play some of these starters here. But we know they're not going anywhere without Herbert. Keenan Allen's now officially dinged up, so. Short week, to me, it makes sense for them as an organization to protect their assets and not play Keenan Allen. So I am officially worried that Keenan Allen's probably not going to play on Thursday night. I have 2 buy and a 1 seed. All right. I think I have 4 money leagues that I care about. I have a buy in one of them. And then I will say I do like my chances in all 4 of them, at least. How do the playoffs work in the Fellowship League? It still says I made it. So I had to update that earlier today, Harris. Officially, it says that you were in, but the way that I do, so this is how I do most of my league playoffs. So down here, you will see playoff teams will be as follows: 7 teams, the top 6 records with 7 seed in on points, and then playoff seeding is the total points tiebreaker. So if I go to the standings tab, we're going to take the top 6 teams. So that would be Brown, Jellybean, fellow KGB, the fellow MLB, Team Young, and Keep Hope Alive. And then it defaults to the team that had the most fantasy points, which ended up being Tank for Trevor. So our official Fellowship Free League will be the following 7 teams. So I did have to swap out Harris for number 8, Tank for Trevor. That's just one of the things that I make sure I do in all my leagues is make sure that last seed's in on points. And we take the top 6 teams in on record. So unfortunately, Harris, I hate to break it to you. What happened to Matt Gay this week? I will be monitoring with my buy. Yeah, he cost me some fantasy points in a few leagues. I'm not sure what happened. it wasn't great, and hopefully he can rebound here. But kickers have a bad day every now and then. We'll just chalk it up to that. Bad game from Matt Gay. But keep the questions coming in, guys. We'll continue to hang out for the next half an hour or so. I'm going to read some more of the news here that we're going to be monitoring throughout the rest of the week. Again, it is looking like Alexander Mattison is DNP today. Probably not going to play. He might not play the rest of the year. We don't know what the severity of this ankle injury is, and they play on Saturday, so tomorrow's injury report will be very important. Justin Jefferson limited. You have Josh Jacobs, who I don't think Josh Jacobs is going to play in this one either. So, we should be looking at Zamir White on the waiver wire. We should be looking at Ty Chandler. We should be, continuing to monitor some of these backup running backs like Charlene mentioned, and Jordan Mason as well. Jamar Chase, DNP on Tuesday. Slight concern there. We'll see if he can play. I'm not too concerned yet. If he misses tomorrow, I will be a little bit more concerned. Nick Mullins to start at QB for Vikings week 15. We've talked about that a little bit. Jonathan Taylor listed as a did not practice today. I did get a quote on JT saying that he will play again this year. So if you have Jonathan Taylor, hold out hope that he can come back for you guys. Otherwise, that gets back to Tyreek Hill. So unfortunately, the Justin Herbert injury, my man, not great. Am I crazy for thinking that Herbert absence could be good for Eckler? Maybe more short and screen passes for him. And hey, I understand the thinking here. I'll be interested to see if no Keenan Allen, you got to think Austin Eckler is going to get as many touches as he can handle. It might be nice to have Keenan Allen in there just so it doesn't have to all go to Eckler. But this could benefit the running back. I think I agree here. Easton Stick, he played most of that game the other day, and Eckler had nice numbers. So I'm not afraid of playing Austin Eckler. I think he's more of like a low-end RB1, RB2 in this game. And again, it's the Raiders. Anything can happen. We don't really trust the Raiders defense, but I do think dump-offs could be in play for Austin Eckler. And hey, try and get him the ball as much as possible. That's what the quarterback's job should be. So I do like the Austin Eckler thought here. Let me see if I can find some more players here that we should be talking about on this week's waiver wire. If I can, I just want to look and see who the top added players are over the last few days. Of course, Clyde Edwards-Helaire should be picked up. They're holding out hope that Isaiah Pacheco can play this weekend, and I know the ESPN projections are giving Pacheco about 14 or 15 PPR points, so there's a chance Pacheco could practice tomorrow, and I'll feel better if he does practice. But for now, Edwards and McKinnon continue to hold on to both of those guys. Obviously, Ezekiel Elliott should be owned. If Isaiah Likely, if you need a tight end, he's had a nice game the other night here, and they do play on Sunday Night Football against Jacksonville. He's had 8 points and 19.3 in his last 2 games. That's probably his range of outcomes going forward. Jake Browning, man. If you guys played Superflex leagues, he's already picked up. But in the 1 QB league, we're looking at a guy that's got 23 and 26 fantasy points in his last 2 games. Like, this is pretty good, man. 75% against the Colts, 86.5% against the Jags, and 73% passing against the Steelers. So he's very competent. He's rushing for touchdowns. He's throwing for high yards per attempt here. Jake Browning, not a bad start this week if you need somebody. I do like Jordan Love as a streamer. I think my favorite streaming quarterback this weekend, though, is the cover guy on this video, and that's going to be Mr. Matthew Stafford, who's getting the 31st ranked Washington Commanders. So I love Stafford. I'm open to Geno if he can play, but I think if you're streaming QBs, look for Stafford. Otherwise, I would probably go down to Jordan Love, maybe Geno Smith, maybe Jake Browning. Pick one: Joe Flacco, Bailey Zappi, Nick Mullins, or Stick. I think at this point I'm going with Joe Flacco, who I don't know where he's at on these projections. Do they even have I don't even know if they have a quarterback here. They have him all the way down here at 12.5, but I think the one that I trust the most, I'm not whipping out a Nick Mullins or a Stick. I don't want to whip out a guy that I haven't seen before yet. Bailey Zappi, he played very well the last time we saw him on Thursday Night Football against the Steelers, but I don't really have that much confidence in the New England Patriots. I think I'm going to take my chances with Joe Flacco. We've seen him now start 2 games. He's gotten 16 and 20 points. He's throwing the ball. He's throwing it for touchdowns. I'm probably going to take the safe play here with Joe Flacco, Harris. OBJ over Chandler. Let's talk about Odell Beckham, because Odell Beckham is probably a guy that a lot of people are looking at on the waiver wire right now. He's been kind of riding a hot month and a half or so. He's got 3 touchdowns over his last 5 games. His fantasy points, he's got 4 double-digit fantasy point games over the last 5 games. So it's looking good. He is, coming off his best game of the season with 4 for 97 and 10 targets, which is pretty massive. I think for me, I'm probably going to go with the running back, because I'm more likely to need a running back than I am to need another wide receiver. Odell Beckham's riding a hot hand right now, but they do play San Francisco Week 16. That's a little bit of a question mark here. I don't mind the matchup for Jacksonville and Miami, but I think I'm going to take my chances with the young running back here, who could be the every down back. Again, the Vikings don't really have a competent backup behind Ty Chandler. Kenny Nwangwu is more of a special teams player, so I recognize Odell Beckham's playing well. He should be picked up, I think, in 12-team leagues for sure, but I'm going to probably lean with Ty Chandler. Rest of season, yes. And in a half PPR league, I'm still going to continue to lean with the running back there. Likely or Frymouth non-PPR. I think in a non-PPR, I'm going to lean with Isaiah Likely, just because he's attached to Lamar Jackson. I think at this point, I'm going to put myself in the better offense. I know Pat Frymouth has been okay since his return. He's had 2 kind of games, and then of course the one big game, which I don't know if that's going to happen with Mitchell Trubisky. So I'm going to play Isaiah Likely here. Browns or Chiefs D for Week 16. Those are great questions here. I like the Browns defense quite a bit this weekend, but Chicago gives me a little bit of a pause, just because we've seen them play pretty well the last couple times we've seen Justin Fields on the field. And I think you got to go with the Chiefs, man. They're at New England. New England Patriots are not projected to score a lot of points. If I filter by team total, the Patriots are projected to score only 14 points this weekend. I'm playing the Chiefs defense despite it being in New England. You also have the Chiefs kind of playing pissed off after, 2 ugly losses in a row. I'm going to go with the Chiefs. Again, I still think the Browns are a decent play, but I'm a little bit more concerned about the Bears offense than I am the Patriots offense. What is the injury status with Walker and Charbonnet? Again, I haven't seen anything new. I'm assuming everything's okay with these guys here. Tomorrow's going to be a big day, but I think with it being Wednesday and they play on Monday night, we're not going to get an answer on these guys until Thursday. So I didn't hear of any re-aggravations or anything from this past weekend, so I'm assuming they're going to be okay. Let me just double check and see if ESPN has any notes on these guys here. I don't see any questionable tags, which is good. But again, we're not going to get any injury designations on these guys until Thursday, so we're kind of in the wings. I guess, if you wanted to add DJ Dallas as a hedge, sure, but I think both guys came out fine out of this game here, so I would not be too worried about the Seattle backs. I'm cool with keeping Elijah Moore. I know he didn't explode for the game that we were hoping for, but still 3 for 42 on 6 targets. That's kind of a floor. If you're looking at 2 games with Joe Flacco, 7 to 12 points, I think he's worth holding on to in deeper formats. Games against Chicago and Houston are pretty decent matchups the next couple weeks here. Don't love the Jets matchup, but that's also a revenge game for Elijah Moore, so maybe he's turned up a little bit more than normal for it. And hey, Wan'Dale Robinson did look pretty nice last evening. He's had some moments, for a little bit there. I was rostering him when he came back on the field week 3. He kind of fell into this weird, not so effective role before the bye. But after the bye, he was the player that kind of swung the game for the Giants last night. 6 for 79 on 7 targets, 2 for 36 as a rusher. Definitely someone to keep an eye on with, playing well with this quarterback, that he might be his main guy. I think Wan'Dale Robinson is worth a stash. For week 16, my bad. I didn't read the week 16 part. Let's look at it. All right, so you got the Cleveland Browns at Houston. So we haven't talked about CJ Stroud yet. We'll get to that after this one. I don't think CJ Stroud's going to play this weekend. He's probably going to play on December 24th. So Cleveland at Houston, I think that's a fine matchup. You then have the Kansas City Chiefs hosting the Raiders. I think at that point, I'm going to go with Kansas City at home against a much inferior opponent. I'm going to lock in Kansas City still here, Harris. Chuba Hubbard, our backup for the Raiders, full PPR. I'm going to stick with Chuba Hubbard. I do not trust the Raiders to play Zamir White. We haven't seen Zamir White get any run for 2 years. I think if Josh Jacobs misses time, they're going to play musical chairs at running back anyways. They use Amir Abdullah. They're going to call up Brandon Bolden. They're going to mess with us. So I just don't feel confident starting Zamir White. The most carries we've seen from him in a game is 4. We're still not sure if he's a good running back in the NFL here too. So I'm fine with holding on to Zamir White, but Chuba Hubbard, he's locked into 15 to 20 touches per game going forward. I'm just going to take the Chuba Hubbard points, and maybe Josh Jacobs is back next week. I'm just going to stick with Chuba. It's hard to say. I mean, I think at this point we know the Raiders' season is pretty much down the drain. Not sure what's going on with the quadricep injury here. My guess would be, that we see him again, probably week 16, if not week 17. I'm not that interested. I just don't think the Raiders are a team that are going to help us win fantasy championships this year. So I'm going to let somebody else pick up Zamir White. I'm going to let somebody else pick up Amir Abdullah. It's also one of the worst Thursday night games. After as bad as last week's game was, this game might be somehow worse. I'm not going to trust the Raiders running backs here. Something changed about the Browns D against Houston week 16, or should I search for an alternative? The Browns D against Houston. No, I still like the Browns defense. I think the Browns defense, there might not be any team that I'm nervous about the Browns playing that would make me want to sit them. This game's in Houston. There's going to be a lot of playoff implications on the line here. And now we're dealing with a couple injuries here from Houston. You have Nico Collins, who left with a calf strain, and you have CJ Stroud with a concussion. I'm assuming Stroud will be fine for week 16, but not sure on Nico Collins. That could be something that changes my thoughts there. I still like Cleveland Browns to start against Cleveland, but in the question before, I for sure I like Kansas City at home against the Raiders more than I like Cleveland at Houston. Foreman or Hunt? That's a good question. Kareem Hunt actually continues to play quite a bit. He had 10 fantasy points last week. He had 5.8 the week before. He kind of had a lull here for a little bit, but he's getting double-digit carries, which I like. He did score a touchdown against Jacksonville. I think Kareem Hunt's interesting against Chicago this weekend, and it's a tough matchup because you got Foreman going up against the tough Browns, and we know that's not a team that we want to mess with, but Deonta Foreman here comes in. He leads the Bears backfield with 11 carries for 50 yards, 2 for 22 as a rusher. I think if I'm starting one of the two, I'm probably going to go with Foreman. Just because the Browns are a really good defense, like they've been allowing rushing, they've been kind of on this slide here of allowing a lot of rushing touchdowns the last few games. They did lose a lot of yards here to the Steelers and the Broncos a few weeks back. They did tighten up against Jacksonville, but they also let Kieran Williams and the Rams get some points here. So I don't hate the matchup for Deonta Foreman. I think I'm probably going to play Foreman. And hey, Rico Dowdle for sure. One of the running backs that we want to make sure is not hanging around the waiver wire. I think he's a good running back. He's in one of the best offenses in football right now. Rico Dowdle is a must-own handcuff. And then as far as Kenneth Gainwell goes, I think it's very similar. He's not startable unless something happens to DeAndre Swift. But hey, I mean, we're looking at some really nice matchups for the Eagles coming up here. So I think I'm very open to stashing Kenneth Gainwell. They're getting Seattle on Monday night this week, the Giants in Arizona. If you have Eagles, you're very happy about the schedule coming forward. So I do think Gainwell is a guy that I want to hold on to for the fantasy playoffs. But, Foreman is a guy that I want to pick up. Ty Chandler is definitely probably the waiver wire pickup of the week. And for the rest of the year, I think Kenneth Gainwell is a stash. I do think Rico Dowdle is a stash. We'll continue to monitor Dearness Johnson. I think he's okay. I do want to mention a couple other players. I like maybe Kendre Miller, but Chase Brown. We're not talking about Chase Brown enough. This is a guy that's looked good in back-to-back weeks, and he got involved as a receiver against the Colts. 3 for 80 and a touchdown. He kind of broke the game open and opened up the scoring fest for the Browns, or for the Bengals. 8 for 25 as a rusher. He might be locked into 7 to 10 carries going forward. And once this cat's out of the bag like this, 3 for 80 as a receiver, they might have to try and throw him the ball at least once or twice a game going forward. And if anything happens to Mixon, we got a guy here that we feel good about. So I love adding Chase Brown to the end of my bench. He's one of the best waiver wire pickups for the week as a stash play. There's Jordan Mason. You also have Zamir White. Again, you can stash him. We're not going to start him on Thursday night, but I think you can stash him. I'm also willing to stash Chris Rodriguez. I'll stash Michael Carter. These are just some of the bottom barrel running backs that I'm looking at as far as stashes. And I think at this point, I would more, assuming you have enough receivers to last you for the next 3 weeks, I highly recommend stashing some of these lower owned running backs, because all it takes is one injury and their value shoots up like crazy. Daniel says Green Bay, Denver, or Cleveland in week 16. Let's take a look at it. So Green Bay against Carolina is pretty nice. Denver's going to get the New England Patriots. I don't hate the Denver game against the Patriots and Cleveland week 16. I think I'm going to go Denver, man, just because they're at home. It's you have New England traveling. It's a primetime game, which is weird. I'm going to go with the Denver Broncos here, who might, if they win this weekend against the Detroit Lions, they're squarely in the playoff hunt right now. And even if they lose to the Lions, they're going to need to win this game. So I'm going to rank them as Denver, Cleveland, and then I'll put Green Bay last. But let's call out some more players that are worth stashing. With the Nico Collins injury, that's going to open things up for Noah Brown to be the lead receiver. Down Nico probably this week and maybe another game or two. They're getting Tennessee this weekend and week 17. I don't really know if I trust him. He's had 2 goose eggs in a row here, so that is concerning. But, if no CJ Stroud this weekend, I'm not as excited about it. But maybe Noah Brown's worth stashing and seeing what happens. Curtis Samuel needs to be rostered. Elijah Moore needs to be rostered. I still think Demario Douglas needs to be picked up. Maybe Quentin Johnston. He's the guy that's put together 2 decent games in a row, 3 for 91, double digits in 2 straight games here. So keep an eye on him. Zay Jones is probably a guy that needs to be picked up. 7.9 and 12.8 points the last 2 games. He's had 5 catches in both games, and the targets are there, 8 and 14. I don't think you're going to see Trevor Lawrence throw the ball 50 times a game the rest of the year, but it's very clear that he doesn't mind throwing to Zay Jones. So Zay Jones needs to be scooped up. I'll tell you what, Treylon Burks, I know he didn't play great. It's good to see him back, and just the way that Will Levis played, maybe Treylon Burks could be a guy worth keeping an eye on going forward. Josh Palmer would be the easy choice if you're looking for receiver help right now, and same with Rashid Shaheed. He has a chance that we haven't seen him for 2 games. There's a chance he plays. He's going to get the Giants, the Rams, and the Buccaneers. I don't hate those matchups for him. He could be a guy that helps you down the stretch here. Atwell, Mingo, Jameson, Tony, these are guys I don't really love. Maybe Robert Woods. Just if they're down Nico Collins and we know they're down Tank Dell, maybe Robert Woods pops off to end the year. That wouldn't surprise me. Maybe Khalil Shakir. Maybe Michael Wilson, who's been, resting from his shoulder injury. We haven't seen him since week 10. He's had 3 full games of rest and a bye week. So it's been a full month of rest for his shoulder. They're going to get San Fran, Chicago, and Philly. These are games where we expect Kyler Murray to have to throw. So I do like Michael Wilson. Maybe Rashad Bateman, maybe Greg Dortch. Dontavian Wick's got a high ankle sprain, so I'm not in love there. Wan'Dale Robinson, Marvin Mims, these are names that I like adding. Maybe Parker Washington. Maybe Justin Watson. Those are plenty of names here for you guys. It is officially playoff time. Let's make sure we're doing all of our best moves right now. I'm assuming you guys are good on tight end. There's really not too many tight ends out there that I think need to be picked up. I think Likely and Thomas are okay. The one that I did want to mention still is Brevin Jordan. We don't know what's going on with Dalton Schultz. Tucker Kraft actually has looked okay the last couple games. He's had 9, 6, and 10. You could do worse here. Tampa Bay, Carolina, Minnesota on the schedule. I don't hate it. Otherwise, Tanner Hudson, he's kind of the last guy here. And he's been the starting tight end since about week 9. You got a chance at 8 to 10 points if you play Tanner Hudson. So tight ends are pretty washed up right now, though. But let me know if you guys have questions. Running backs, wide receivers, tight ends. We got everything you need. I will be again going live tomorrow evening. We'll have, it's kind of weird, but like as the season goes on, the waiver wire is less important because most of the good players are owned, and it pretty much goes back to what we've been talking a lot about tonight: is adding those guys, those backups, those handcuffs, and basically being a week early. You don't want to get into a bidding war in your fantasy playoffs here. And then just some housekeeping, guys. Like if your team, this is just how a lot of my leagues operate. If there's no, if you don't make the playoffs, none of my playoff team or none of my leagues have consolation brackets. So if you miss the playoffs, you have nothing to play for. There's no reason to make any waiver wire moves. We let the champion bracket continue to make moves and let that be unbothered. So that's one of my favorite rules, is to just be mindful of your league rules. And basically, if I'm not winning a championship, if I'm knocked out of the playoffs, I'm going to let the other teams make moves. I guess dynasty leagues are a little bit different, but for sure, redraft leagues, I'm not making any moves in the fantasy playoffs. But I'll do a couple more looks around here. I do want to look at some of the fantasy points allowed charts here. I love my new charts that I was able to put up this year, but I still am a sucker for these heat maps. It's going to be Matthew Stafford week, guys. I think Puka Nacua, Cooper Kupp, and Kieran Williams are all smash plays. So congrats. If you made it this far with the Rams players, you're probably in for a really good weekend against the Washington Commanders. I think the Philadelphia Eagles are going to give up points to the Seattle Seahawks. I mean, I think Kenneth Walker, DK Metcalf, Tyler Lockett, maybe even JSN. I think you want to take advantage of this bad Eagles secondary. Seattle still got some fight in them. We saw them play well enough to kind of hang around the San Francisco game, and we'll see about Geno Smith. But I like the passing attack for Seattle. Not interested in attacking the Chargers defense here, but the Seahawks-Eagles game, it might be actually pretty good for fantasy. I think you're in love with all your Eagles for sure, but we might be in for one of those games where we saw a few weeks back where Dallas and Seattle kind of got out of hand with some scoring back and forth. We use wide receiver / tight end spot. I always put in a wide receiver in that slot, and I probably would too. I think there's only maybe 2 or 3, 4 tight ends that would get the nod in a format like that, and I'm probably starting a wide receiver almost every time. Some tough matchups this week include, we know the Bears going up against the Browns defense is not great. It's in Chicago. I think you're still starting. You're still starting Justin Fields. I think you're still starting DJ Moore. The New York Jets, they're going to get Miami. I think you're still starting Tyreek. You're still starting Jalen Waddle. We'll see if Tyreek can go. I think the ankle sprain is going to be something that we're watching all week here. I don't have a really good answer on what's going to happen there, but I think I'm still starting, even though it's the Jets. We did get this matchup a few weeks back ago on Black Friday. I think you're still going to start the guys we trust, maybe even start Tua in a 1 QB league, even though I'm not super excited about it. This Cowboys Buffalo Bills matchup, though, I think that's going to be one of the better games on the Sunday slate, as in Buffalo. Dallas defense, one of the better defenses in the league going up against one of the better quarterbacks in the league. Something's got to give. I think this game's going to be good game for both sides. You're starting Josh Allen. One thing I wanted to note was James Cook. Ever since they fired their offensive coordinator and have the new guy in, James Cook's been highly involved as a passing receiver. So if you have James Cook, I think you're on to something here. You're going to continue to play him in full PPR leagues. We're going to be watching the health of Dalton Kincaid. I don't know what's going on with him yet. Dawson Knox might be worth monitoring just in case Kincaid can't go. If Kincaid can't go, man, it's been tough to trust Gabe Davis. I don't know if I want to. It's fantasy playoffs. I personally don't know if I'm going to be able to recommend Gabe Davis as a start. So if you guys are going to have questions on Gabe Davis, I might be a little bit skittish to answer those. But I still like Buffalo's side for this one. I'm excited about Cowboys Buffalo Bills. The Ravens defense is really good, which makes me nervous about Trevor Lawrence and the Jags. I'm not super confident in Trevor Lawrence as a QB1. I'm not super confident in Calvin Ridley, Zay Jones. I think I'm okay with Evan Ingram as a tight end just because tight end sucks. And I think you're playing ETN. So out of all the Jags, I think it's ETN and Ingram that I'm going to leave in my lineups. The New Orleans Saints, pretty good defense. I just think the Giants, it's Saquon Barkley. That's pretty much it. The rest of the guys can stay on the bench or the waiver wire. Kansas City Chiefs, they're going to get the Patriots. You're going to play Ezekiel Elliott. That's the one guy that I think can be played as a low-end RB2. I don't think he's going to come out and get those 26 points that he got last weekend, so be wary of that. I think he's more in the 12 to 14 point range this week. And those Chiefs defense, they need to step up this weekend because they've been reeling. But some interesting games down here. Another NFC South matchup here. Carolina Falcons, first 1 to 13 wins. We'll see how that goes. But let me see what else we got here. The weather wasn't too bad. Yeah, it was okay. I just think that it was the Jets game that we saw. Good question here from Darren Waller. I'm not super confident in playing Darren Waller at his first game back, especially with it being against the Saints. The Saints are a good team. They do allow tight end points, but I just don't know if I'm willing to trust Darren Waller in the first week of the playoffs without seeing him first. We don't know what his complement of snaps are going to be. If he's only out there for 50% of the snaps, that's not good. Personally, I think he's worth holding on to, but I don't know if I can recommend starting Darren Waller this weekend. Dan says, just off topic, but today is official. The NFL is coming to Brazil next year. All right. Oh man, what do you guys think about that? No, I'm all for. This is cool, man. I'm all for the NFL moving on to bigger markets. Hopefully they can add a second or third game into Brazil. I think when I do my website and my fantasy stats and my YouTube stuff, I do see the analytics are all over the place, whether it's in Europe or Ireland or I get a lot of stuff in South America too. So I am all for the NFL expanding and giving a little bit of culture to this league. So very cool. I would hope for more, man. Let's get some more. I don't know if Argentina can do something, but definitely excited about Brazil. I think that's a fun market. And where else can the NFL go? We've had games in Brazil. I think Mexico City. There's been a few games in Germany. Obviously, London's been a popular one. Maybe we go to Ireland next. I don't know. I'm open to more fun places. But yeah, man, Brazil. Very cool for Daniel. Hopefully he gets to go to the game. Oh, yeah, Tater's online with us here coming in from Twitch. Good luck, everybody. It's fantasy playoffs week. Thankfully, I made the playoffs in my most important league here with Jake, good friend, longtime friend. We're in our 14th year of my fantasy fellowship most important league. Jake is a 2-time champ. Jake's in the playoffs. I'll be in the playoffs as well. It's going to be fun. I can't believe that it's already fantasy. Like it feels like we were just drafting these teams and it goes by faster and faster every year. But very excited about the playoffs. And yes, good luck to everybody. 3-time. Oh my goodness. He's already calling the 3-time champ. But Vegas next year, we will. I'm assuming that's what you and Drake were talking about today. So we'll figure out where we're drafting for Labor Day next year. And yeah, 3-time champion. I'm just trying to get the 1-time. But anyways, guys, that's going to do it for me tonight. Thank you for hanging out with me this evening. Always love on the Fantasy Fellowship. We love everybody here. I love you guys hanging out and basically just keeping me company while I keep you guys company. We'll be going live tomorrow night. 7 p.m. Central Time tomorrow night. We'll go live for the hour. We'll go over any relevant player news, start sit questions, whatever you guys need tomorrow night. We'll see you. Take it easy. Have a good rest of your evening. Peace.